think I'll just let you know I'm Tiffany Fraser with Street Soccer USA, and I'm here to just ask a ton of questions because this is a world that I know nothing about as much as I've been in soccer my whole life. So I am frankly going to kind of kick it over to you, and I might ask all the dumb questions or all the great questions, and hopefully it's useful. As I know, we have folks from, in the beginning of their thought process around coaching, and then folks that are well, down the journey. So I just wanted to kind of start with hearing a little bit about just where you're at licensing wise, what that even enables you to do, the range of folks that you get to coach and work with. Let's just start there. What is the status?
Yes. So, I mean, there's so many different layers to the licensing process and just the coaching experience and where to start and all of that. And so I kind of was just given really good advice that I needed to pursue licenses as a way to just build my resume and get it more experience so that I could kind of compete with men in terms of looking for different jobs. We got to do whatever we can to, look good on paper as well as obviously be able to coach very well. So I currently have my UEFA A license. I did my US Soccer B license and my UEFA B all within like a 3.5 year period. So I'm a little bit licensed out right now. I've had some people ask if they're like, are you going to do your US Soccer A license? I'm like, I don't know. At some point, probably. But
Is that a typical timeline in 3.5 years, or
say that again?
Is that a typical timeline?
No, I was like on one. I was like really excited about it. Yeah, so the purpose of me doing my UEFA licensing was, so I had my my US soccer, like my D license, and I just wanted to skip. Actually, no, I didn't have my D. I just did like the grassroots, like basic. Um, and having my professional playing background, I wanted to just go into the C license after having coached for like 15 years at that point. Having pro experience, I had already coached at the college level, been a director of coaching for a club for 8 years. And US Soccer denied my experience. And so they said I had to start like back at the beginning, and I couldn't go into the C. So I actually applied to the UEFA B license as a professional player, and was accepted, which was shocking to me. But I had to go because I got the opportunity. So I did my UEFA B license, and then I reapplied to US Soccer to get waived in to the C, and they actually let me skip the C and go directly into the B license. So it was interesting. I left the country to do a license to skip the one I actually wanted to take. It was very interesting, but it all worked out. So that's why I kind of very quickly did my UEFA B and then did my US Soccer B license in the same year. And then the following year is when I was approached by the Welsh FA and asked if I wanted to pursue doing my UEFA A license. So that's kind of how I ended up in that course. It was just an opportunity I couldn't say no to because I had learned so much from my BA experience. So yeah.
And so kind of two questions. It sounds like that's a pretty abnormal pathway, right?
Yeah.
And so the first question is, for somebody who is just considering the notion of coaching, they love the game. I love the game. I am not certified for anything. I do coach folks. Somehow people listen, but like, what is the typical trajectory if someone's thinking, hey, this is a badass woman that I'm like, I could see myself doing this, but what would my typical path be? We'll start there. What does that even look like?
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of fun is that there's so many different ways to start your like licensing journey, and obviously there's the United Soccer Coaches, which has their own kind of licensure process. And I've got my national diploma through that as well, but like a long time ago, and they, I think the US soccer licensing process starts with the grassroots license. And that's kind of just like an introductory way to They kind of give you all the information at that point, which is really, really nice when you feel overwhelmed. Like, how do I run a session? What are the things I need to consider when I'm putting, again, my practice plan together? What age group am I working with? So the grassroots is a really great place to start. I have all my players at San Francisco State when I was there and at UC Davis go through the grassroots license process because I'm like, you might find that this is the career that you want.
Yeah.
And this might be something that you want to pursue. So give yourself a license. And also, I think it helps players actually become better players when they have to coach others. So anyway, I think the grassroots is a great way to start, starting with the United Soccer Coaches. I don't know what their like basic kind of level is. So that's a great way. But honestly, like even before you start the license process, I think it's awesome. And there's so many coaches that would be willing to have young coaches or coaches with not a ton of experience come watch their sessions, and either like volunteer on their staff or just spend some time at games or training sessions just to kind of get a feel for what goes into it. And there is not an A plus B equals C process in licensing. Like everyone's going to have kind of a different journey, but I think US soccer has gotten a lot better at making it more like user friendly and more inclusive. United Soccer Coaches, I think, has kind of always had a pretty inclusive environment in terms of like starting somewhere and having access. So I would just start with the basic, and like it's okay. Like you don't have to skip things. Like I think there's so much value in starting and like taking the little steps instead of trying to take like big steps because you just learn so much along the way. And what's actually really cool is you network a lot too, and you meet a lot of other coaches.
Well, you led right into it. I was going to ask, how important is the networking aspect or knowing other coaches? Is it the scenario of, I played with this person and I know them as a player and we can, and I bring them into my club, or like, how does that networking piece look? How important is it in this industry and in coaching?
I honestly think networking is like paramount. I mean, that's how you get jobs. Is probably like one of the most important things. It's, obviously the higher up it's what you know and who you know that helps. But I think kind of starting out, it's like, it's who you meet. And, coaching is such it's an industry where you work with people, right? So it's like the more people that you know and the more people that you interact with and get to know on a professional and personal level, the more impact you're going to have. So it's just like coaching players and coaching, that's just other colleagues that you have that you can lean on for advice, for feedback, for information, and so the networking component, like that's been my favorite part. I think probably during the licensing process also is just the people that I've met and staying in touch with them, and just, it's a lot of recommendations, right? So it's like, maybe a job's not right for me, but hey, I know this other great person that I met at this license, and that's just kind of, she's looking for a new job, or she's looking to kind of level up and, pursue a Division 1 level, or whatever it might be, or she wants to switch clubs because she's moving out of the area. Like all that networking stuff is so important. And I mean, I think if you're in coaching, it means that you love people and you want to be around people. And as a coach, you always want to help.
Yeah.
So you're also going to be around like-minded people that want to see you succeed, that want to help you. So that's, I think it's an important piece for sure.
Were there any like conferences or any any things like that were really meaningful along your journey as in licensing?
So part of the UEFA A license, you have to go to the Welsh FA's convention. So it's very different than the United Soccer Coaches coaching convention that, has thousands and thousands of people. The Welsh FA has about probably like between 500 and like 1,000 people, maybe even a little bit smaller. It's obviously a significantly smaller country too, but it was incredible. It's only 2 days, but I guess you could say like the talents or the coaches that they have come in that present are like, my mind was blown. Like I could not write fast enough, like trying to take notes. So the conference that I went to while I was there had just incredible speakers. Like Mikel Arteta was speaking, who, coaches Arsenal, and you got Thierry Henry presented. they Patrick Vieira presented. I mean, it was pretty incredible. So that to me was like, I felt like I was at this like secret meeting of like the soccer minds of the world, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, what am I doing in
How
this
did I
room? But
get here?
yeah, but it was pretty amazing. So that like blew my mind, and it really just in a way of like not just the information, but just um like the information in terms of like like globally, like how many things there are available in the soccer world. Like we're so in our little bubble here in the United States, and just seeing
Mhm.
like that soccer, how global soccer is. And that was the first time that I just was like, what, this is incredible. There's so many opportunities.
Oh, that's amazing. Um, okay, well, and I'm gonna push on this because if one is not benefited the opportunity to go outside of the US and
Mhm.
experience that, is there anything that you've experienced here domestically that you would say like, yes, this is instrumental?
You know, honestly, like I think doing anything where you feel like you're developing is the most important thing. So obviously the conventions here are great from a networking perspective. I think you get to see great sessions, great workshops. Um, but the thing that I would say like is it's okay that you don't know everything, and like you don't have to know everything. That's like
Mm.
the point. Like once you feel like you do know everything, then like you're done. Like you need to retire or
Yeah.
something, because like you got to keep learning and like put yourself in environments where you're gonna, grow. So again, like everybody lives in some sort of soccer market. So there's a lot of clinics, a lot of different clubs put on clinics, a lot of different organizations like Women in Soccer do a lot of cool stuff in the community. Just, put yourself out there, and you have to be like, my biggest piece of advice is be proactive. Like,
Mm.
there's a lot of people that are going to try to help you, but like you have to really help yourself, and you have to seek information, you have to seek knowledge, you have to seek out clinics and courses, and reach out to directors and technical, directors, all those different things to see if, you know, how can I involve myself, and how can I put myself in any sort of atmosphere and environment where I'm going to learn and grow.
No, definitely. Um, and it's, you can also, if you're looking for it, you can find those learning moments, I
Hmm.
think, in any encounter, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, well, and so for you, did you always have your mind set at coaching, and having a particular licensure? Like, how did you contemplate, what level you wanted to coach, or
Hmm.
what was that process for you? And backing it up back to someone again who has no licensure, is I know I had a particular process of deciding like this is the level that I want to coach at and that I'm equipped to coach at, and I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
But what was that conversation with yourself, and what did that sound like for you, and what would you recommend for other folks when they're assessing the extent that they want to go down this path?
Yeah, I don't think that I like woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna be a Division 1 head coach, and like this is the journey and this is how I'm gonna get there. My journey is a little bit different than a lot of people, but that's the thing, is like everyone's journey is different, and that's something that like I think is also really important to know. Like there is not a perfect system to like get where you want to go or where you think you want to go, because you might love where you're at and you don't want to leave, right? Even though you had these other like dreams or aspirations. So um, I once I was done with my professional career, I was 28 years old and was like fairly lost, right? Like once you're done playing, and especially like in your late 20s, it's not like you just finished college and you're like, what do I do next? Like I was like kind of like a lot of my friends had already kind of started their career paths, like what they were doing. And and I got the head coaching job at Santa Rosa Junior College, which I knew nothing about junior college soccer. All I
Yes.
knew was that it was a master's required position, and I had just gotten a master's, and I was like, yes, I have that. Like, okay. And I applied, and it was a full-time teaching job also. So,
Mm.
and I'd never taught before. So it was definitely like a dive in. I'm not sure what to expect. And I had the best experience because I was working with a demographic of women that I had never really worked with before. I mean, some of the women that I coached had kids, or they were, first generation college students, or they had to work full time and they could only come for like 30 minutes to a practice. So coming off of playing in Division 1 soccer and then professionally, like a
That's
lot
it's
of
totally different.
it completely different.
Yeah.
You know, like soccer was not their life, and I was like, it has to be your life. Like that's the only way to succeed. You know, like and
Yeah.
so they really, really helped me like holistically understand how to coach women effectively because and take into account all the different components of someone's personality and all their different characteristics of like what drives them to be successful and their idea of success might be different than mine, but that doesn't mean that they don't care, that they're not competing, that they're not putting their heart and soul into it. So um, I I was coaching at Santa Rosa and I loved it. It was great. I think that the piece that was hardest for me was I think probably like the accountability component, like that there was other things that they had going on and that wasn't like a negative. It was just something that like I was like, that's hard for me to, you know, if we're gonna win and we're
Hard
gonna
for you to
compete.
coach with and
Yes,
have
and
them
all
share
the
a
things.
role in
But I
your.
loved it, but I think like in terms of my aspirations, I was like, I wanted to be in an environment where and it wasn't the women necessarily like on the team. I think it was just like the whole like
Nature of
just
the.
nature of what it is. And that's great because like it's a stepping stone for everybody. Like that's the like a point of junior college in a big way, right? Is to help you move on to something next. And that's wonderful. Like it serves an incredible purpose. I had the best experience there. I would go back. Like that's how wonderful it was. But so then we did well. And the athletic director at San Francisco State had reached out to me, and that's a Division II school, and had me, come interview. And so I moved on to San Francisco State after 3 seasons and just had, a really great experience there as well. And that was kind of, an important piece because I think for me, when I talked about taking baby steps, there are some things. So like in between my pro seasons, I was the assistant coach at Cal. If I'd stayed at Cal and never went to go play a pro season, like I would probably my trajectory would have been much different and path as a coach because I was already an assistant at a Pac-12 school. If I'd stayed 5 years or 3 or 5 years, like I probably would have jumped to like a Division I head coaching job much earlier, or even a different level. And so I kind of just fell into the San Francisco State thing and having done well. And at that point, I think is when I had that conversation with myself of like, oh, I'm doing this. Okay, like I'm going to be a NCAA soccer coach, and that's my path. And I love this so much. It brings me so much joy. It's the best part of my day is being on the field with my team. Like, so okay, I found it. Like, this is what I want to do. And lucky enough, we had a great team and got some good wins, and ended up, getting hired at UC Davis, and have been here for 5 years and I love it. Again, like I don't know if I've ever been somewhere like I haven't loved. Like I just like fully just like invest and go for it. But that once I was at San Francisco State is when I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And that's when I started pursuing all the licenses.
Mhm.
And just felt like I really want to grow. Like if this is what I'm gonna do, I gotta get good at this because
Yeah.
right now the only knowledge I have is like from being a player and being a 1 year assistant coach. So how am I gonna get better? I got to start doing licenses. I got to start going to clinics. I got to start talking to people. I got to start meeting and like have mentors and do all that. Because if I'm a head coach forever now, where do I learn? Where do I grow? How do I get better? And you got to put yourself, like I said, in environments to like commit to your professional development because no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to call you and be like, hey, come watch my session. Like you got to reach out.
Right.
You got to go do it. So
No, that's such a great point. Just that proactive nature once you've had that conversation and then just being like, I gotta show up to the opportunities and I gotta make the calls and I gotta try and be a student of this in the same way you would.
sure, because you can get lost in like the social component, of being a coach, and especially like when you're out recruiting, like it's easy to like, not be the first at the field or not be the last to leave. And like, just cause like that's the vibe, everyone kind of like knows what they're doing. And I really committed myself to, there's some hard early mornings, right? But like, I was like, I want everyone to see me, all the club coaches. I want all the other college coaches. I want them to see me already at the field when they arrive. Like, I want them to know that I want this. I'm like, going to be the hardest worker. I'm going to be hard to beat, like you better show up if you want to compete with me. So, I tried for a long time and I still feel like I hold myself accountable in a lot of ways to, be the first there, last to leave and do all the extra stuff. Like that's not really extra for me. I love it. It's just part of
Yeah.
the game, part of the growth. But
I can
Yeah.
totally hear the type of player that you were, and I'm like, yes, I want you on my team.
No questions.
You said something earlier too around uh, just the conversation that you had with yourself regarding like what what outcomes or expectations you had for the game or for the season, and um, the variables that like junior college in particular, it is a stepping stone to
Mhm.
whatever's next. And I think that was uh, what I was hearing in those comments was how important it is to align, your goals and outcomes and make sure that the level you're coaching at is congruent with
Mhm.
what you as a coach are expecting, what players are expecting to get out of the experience. And if there is incongruence, like perhaps you're coaching at the wrong
Yeah.
level, and I've coached with players that wanted to win way more than I did. And I was like, look, I'm just here doing community service.
Yeah,
Like,
right. No
now,
question.
like
But
being in
the authenticity is so key because like there's something, and this is like a little bit off topic, but relative, I promise, is like, when you're creating your value system with your team and you're like, these are the things that are important, these are the abilities that, we need to have, and this is going to be our identity. Like, if you've got four values, if those values aren't true to you as a coach, then they're never going to stick. Like those aren't going to be something that your team buys into and that your team also follows, right? Like,
sure.
and so it's like whatever level you're coaching at, if you know that that's not, if you're not committed to being great at that level, or like that you're passionate about being at that level, because every level is not for everyone. It's like you
For
have to
sure.
be really honest with yourself, because that trickles into your team, it bleeds into your team. They can
Mhm.
feel it, and I know women coach men too, but like women are highly, highly in tune people, right? And it's like they can read through things, like they'll see it immediately, like they'll feel that energy. So for me, like when you're creating that value system, like you've got to really, really value those things and live those values. So same, when you're talking about the coaching level, like you have to have the knowledge to coach at a level, you've got to have the passion to coach at whatever level, and that energy, whatever it requires,
Mhm.
is really important, the authenticity and the genuineness of that.
For sure. Yeah. And in this conversation around licensing and what licenses do I need, and or to what extent do I take this? That it sounds like is a pretty critical lesson in conversation to have early on in the process, and
Mhm.
really often, right? Like,
Mhm.
am I operating at the am I operating in congruency across the team and demonstrating
Totally.
that, and is there a fit in that regard? Okay, well, I know my instructions are to ask for Q&A right now, and so I want to just pause and take a moment to allow anyone that's kind of out there in the space, if they have any questions that we want to, throw out here to Tracy, and in kind of the world of things, we'll allow some space for that. Yes, and thank you. Any questions that you have, please do drop them in the chat and we will call on them. And in the meantime, Tracy, I want you to just think about last words that you will part people with after we do Q&A. But I do see a question. How do you communicate with gatekeepers here? Amazing. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Mhm.
Um, Well, I feel like it's only appropriate to give you the mic and let us hear just a little bit about you. The opening question I threw out there to Tracy on the onset was just about, what license you hold and what does that enable you to do, which is great to know. But also I'd love to hear just kind of your opening thoughts on licensure, knowing that we have folks that are maybe just thinking about coaching and folks on this line that are well into their path. So
Mhm.
first, just a little bit about kind of what you hold, what that enables you to do, and then secondly, um, what you think might be most valuable for folks to hear when it comes to licensing and considering or being on the journey.
Well, I hold a couple different licenses. I hold, let me see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to share the screen and it's not having any success. But I hold a U.S. Soccer B, United Soccer Coaches, Director of Coaching license, a couple of different strength and conditioning certificates, strength and conditioning license. So, yeah, started coaching about 20 years ago, and those are what I got along the way.
Awesome. Are there any kind of key things that you might communicate? Oh, and I can see here your screen, by the way. I think you're sharing, or tech support is sharing, in case you wanted to roll through anything there.
Sure, they can move to the next slide. Like I said, I hate to keep people over, so let me go through this quickly. Yeah, when I was going through my journey, it really came down to why would I get a license? Some people, when you're starting off, you want to be just recognized as a professional, put some letters behind your name. Another reason, it might be required for a position. There are some clubs, these days, the academies, the MLSs, somewhat taking over those require certain licenses. Back when I started coaching, it wasn't really required except for if you coached a state cup team. So required for a position, or maybe you're just looking to increase your pay. So with these type of things, it might be pretty spelt out which licenses you would need to get. Now, there's also to consider, you might want to just increase your coaching network, which Tracy spoke about, and which I've heard is a real benefit with the UEFA courses, as well, just increasing your knowledge. You tend to find when I've gone to the courses and they ask why you take the course, I think everyone wants to, but that tends to not be the answer, that you're taking it to increase your knowledge. Important factors to consider would be the cost. There's a wide variety in the cost of the courses these days. It really has, in many ways, become pay to coach over here in the U.S. So you really have to take into account that, especially with the number of hours as well. I think the pro license for U.S. Soccer has about 360 course hours. A or B, about 180. The D is somewhere around 55, all the way down to a grassroots, which is 4 hours. But 360 course hours, that's a lot. And you tend to have equipment, GPS or tracking, video. So those are things to consider. The eligibility. Now, eligibility, that's pretty spelt out. That is, you have to have your D if you want to get your C. Admission criteria, though, is where I think it becomes a little bit fuzzier, and that's where a lot of people have had issue over the past years. I can have a B and want to get a pro license, but unless I'm working with a pro team, I can't get a pro license. That tends to be how it is in the U.S. And so a lot of coaches say, well, how am I going to, it seems like a catch-22. How can I get their attention or get on that level, get that job if I can't get the license? So the admission criteria can be a little bit tricky and discouraging at times. Short and long-term applications are real factors to consider, and the continuing education requirements go with that. So like I said, if you're really looking maybe for a job in college, I don't think most colleges, and even I'm very happy coaching at a private high school, they don't require me to have any type of license for that. So those are the different things to consider. But, maybe if you're young and you have the time, though, it might not be required for you right now. But at some point, if you want to build up that ladder, you might go ahead and get it. Yeah, can we move on? After considering that, you look at the different options that there are out there. U.S. Soccer Federation, obviously, that's our home governing body, and they have a wide variety. We'll talk about that. The UEFA, we've Tracy talked about that, and a good friend of mine has the B and the A. And that was the one thing that he said. You know, I'm really big on looking at the coaching environment that you're going to be in. And if you're going to be in a coaching environment, you really want to be able to take the information that you receive back to it. And so I think with the UEFA license, the two things that he stuck out to me, you know, sports science. And so if you really want to be able to apply something, you know, like biomechanical principles, you look at an elite performance and then you break that down to your level, you know, the setup, wind up, force producing movement and follow through. So you take that down to yours and you analyze. And he mentioned what Tracy did, which was that the instructors he had were tops. They tended to be youth national coaches, and they provided videos of those national games and really helped them bring it down to their level. So the UEFA seemed like a great coaching experience. The availability of the coaches, everything. And he said, really, in expanding your coaching network, one of the things that I do like about United Soccer Coaches is that it's a little bit more inclusive than I found U.S. soccer courses to be. And he said, well, if you enjoy that type of, you know, meeting different people and diversity, then you'll really enjoy, you know, having a Spanish coach and a French coach, and now really breaking down these different methodologies and tactics. So it's definitely a more costly once you look at it. I believe the cost, he said, somewhere around $3,500 of the UEFA, but then of course you have to add in the travel. As you can see here, the coaching education in the U.S., these are pretty much the top options. You know, to be noted, United Soccer Coaches has a diploma. Some key differences here, other than the prices, you know, might be the continuing education requirements. U.S. Soccer Federation has over the years started to add those, and that is something to take into account with the cost. Yeah, that's.
I wanted to chime in really quick on you had, and I want to honor a question that somebody asked in the Q&A, just around the path for a goalkeeper coach. I saw it was on your slide as kind of a supplemental component. But are there any other nuances to being a goalkeeping coach that are worth noting for anyone that's particularly interested in that path?
I mean, I've probably really, you know, I've probably marginalized it a little bit more than I should, because goalkeeping in itself, you know, that I believe they have national goalkeeping diplomas and advanced national for that. With United Soccer Coaches, they have a whole array. Like my club paid for our goalkeeping coach to take their foundations goalkeeping and really enjoyed it and brought it back to our club. And so I would say, I would look to, if you can, Lisa Cole. She's doing really good things in women's soccer around the world, but she's in charge of their goalkeeping diploma and designs it from top to bottom. You know, I'm not as certain of what's going on in U.S. soccer, but yeah, my apologies, because goalkeeping, yeah, is a
no worries.
For me it would be an add-on. You know,
yes,
it would be an add-on. But yeah, no, that would be. We could probably do a whole nother webinar.
I know. I was gonna say, for either of you guys, if there was any comments you had on that, I know that it's just one goalkeeper on the field at a time, so sometimes it's overlooked. So wanted to make sure to honor that question. Tracy, anything additional? Or are you kind of in the similar way?
Yeah, like there's, like, to Stacey's point, there's a lot of different like goalkeeper specific courses that you can do and licenses. So it is a special breed of people that want to stand in goal. So, you know, they deserve their own licensing process. No, but what I would say is that there's so much opportunity for goalkeepers to coach specifically at the college level. Like I feel like every new job that pops up is like goalkeeper, you know, kind of required or preferred. And I would say it's challenging in different ways, but it's also like such a unique, obviously, role that, you know, it's almost a completely different pathway to like get kind of where you, I guess, want to go to, you know, depending on what level. But there's so many opportunities as a goalkeeper coach, that is unique. Like it's such a specific position that if you're really good at it, like someone's going to find you. Like it is one of those things where it's such a sought after position. And so, I would encourage, anybody to really increase their knowledge, build out their license, build out their resume, because if you're good, like we need you. So same as a goalkeeper is also like as a player, like that's a
Totally.
very, very highly sought after position in women's soccer. So
No doubt a special person that seeks
yes,
that,
yes.
and a valued person that seeks that.
They no doubt they're they're my favorite person on the field for a lot of reasons. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Okay, I know we're nearing time to wrap up, but I wanted to kind of give each of you 45 seconds, like bringing it back to the beginning. We have folks on the line that are just thinking about coaching, trying to figure out, okay, if I've been playing pro, like, should I think about this? I love the game, all of that. And there are people that are well on their journey, maybe with specific aspirations. So I just wanted to give you guys each a bit of time before we wrap on any just kind of last words, thoughts, advice, anything that you would want to make sure to leave this crew with. And Stacy, I'll go ahead and start with you, and then we'll go to Tracy next.
Yeah, no, I would just like I said, you have a bunch of options. Soccer's has theirs. United Soccer Coaches has a variety of other ones. If you're looking to get out, you have UEFA. I know a friend of mine has told me, because I was asking about different options, that Trinidad Tobago, they're a place that's local in the Caribbean where you can go and get an A license. And I do think that in the Caribbean, you're going to get a lot of other of the federations starting their licensing program as well, to where coaches will have options. And so, I think that, like I said, finding a place where you're comfortable with the people, the coaches, how they treat you, your mentors, that's really going to be key. It would also be worth mentioning that, I think that some of my most valuable licensing that I have, that's helped me connect with players and get a better read on the game, the injuries within the game, has not been soccer licenses, but rather my strength and conditioning. I'm a National Strength and Conditioning Association certified strength and conditioning coach specialist. So, that means that I can run weight room programs. I can analyze, biomechanics of players, their footwork. And when you do that, you really, I think, having that type of lens on the game, that's different than a playing time coaching lens. And that's really helped players to feel like, wow, this person wants me to get really about me, and then I can kind of parlay that into the coaching realm, because obviously we want them to get better there too. But, Pilates, my Pilates certification in preventing injuries. I have an International Society of Sports Nutrition. I know with females, the different issues with eating and relationships to food. And, so if you can really educate, you're going to make a huge difference. So, really widen your horizons as much as you can.
Great comments. I'm 4 weeks post-op from ACL surgery, and all I'm thinking about is like, what area do you live in? And like, can you come help me with my PT? Okay, I'll kick it over to you, Tracy, to close us out, and then we'll hand it back to Women in Soccer.
Awesome. I would say, couple things. The first thing is just to be, like I've kind of reiterated many times, is just be really proactive in your own development. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes a lot of discipline to be great at your craft and to put yourself in environments where you're going to learn and grow. So be really proactive is probably my biggest piece of advice. The second is just, keep pursuing knowledge and keep learning, keep growing. And I think something that's really important when you think about going through the licensing process, or, to Stacey's point, any other sort of like certifications or any things that interest you, is go in with the intent of learning. And I know that sounds like obvious, but it's not. Like when you I think that a lot of people approach the licenses or approach their education as kind of just like a means to an end. Like I have to do this because I have to, have a license to coach X, Y, and Z, or I want a couple of letters after my name, so I need to go get this other certification. And you miss out on an opportunity, right? Because that's maybe the people that you're around is like, oh, this license doesn't matter, or it doesn't, like you just have to do it. It's dumb or whatever. Like you really have to take responsibility for the way that you approach that coursework and the way that you approach your own education, and get out of it what you can. Like you're putting so much time, like Stacy's point, oh my God, yeah, it's like 400 hours. Like get something out of it. Like don't just do it to do it, if that makes sense. Like, because there is something for everybody. There's so many little nuggets of information that you can get and take away. So that's kind of my two things: is be proactive and go in with an open mind, like ready to learn, ready to engage, get the most out of your experience going through those processes.